11th century, Europe was a cauldron of ambition, power struggles, and shifting allegiances. Kingdoms rose and fell like the tides, and the map of the continent was in constant flux. It was an era defined by the clash of swords, the building of empires, and the relentless pursuit of dominance. Amidst this backdrop of turmoil and transformation, a young boy in the Duchy of Normandy would rise to become one of history's most formidable figures. This is the story of William the Conqueror, the man who would forever change the face of England and leave a legacy that echoes through the ages. The early medieval period, marked by the waning power of the Viking Age and the consolidation of territories under increasingly centralised rulers, set the stage for William's ascent. Normandy, the land of his birth, was itself a product of Viking conquests, a testament to the dynamic and often violent shifts that characterised the era. It was a time when power was won through blood and strategy, where the survival of the fittest was not just a saying, but a reality. In this world, William's rise from the illegitimate son of a duke to the crowned king of England is a saga of remarkable determination, shrewdness, and the ruthless will to rule. Welcome to the ASMR History Channel, where I blend the art of relaxation with the fascinating tales of history's most influential figures. My aim is to take you on a serene yet informative journey through time, using the calming effects of ASMR to bring historical narratives to life in a way that soothes the mind and enriches the soul. To returning viewers, thank you for your ongoing support, and to new viewers, welcome. I hope you enjoy your time here. Now, let's get back to the video. Today, we embark on an exploration of William the Conqueror, a man whose name is synonymous with conquest and change. His story is not merely about the battle that won him a crown, but about the complex web of alliances, betrayals, and ambitions that defined his path to power. We'll take you through his early years in Normandy, the daring invasion of England, and the profound changes his rule imposed on the country and beyond. Understanding William's journey is crucial, as it provides a lens through which we can view the foundations of modern Europe, the evolution of monarchy, and the enduring impact of medieval politics on today's world. Like any good story, it helps if we start at the beginning. So let's all journey back in time to the rugged landscape of Normandy, where a young William, shaped by the challenges of his time, began to forge his destiny in a world where survival was a game of wit, strength, and unyielding resolve. In the year 1028, in the small town of Falaise, nestled in the heart of Normandy, a boy was born who would one day carve his name into the annals of history. This child, named William, entered a world rife with conflict and uncertainty. Yet, it was his birth under such conditions that would shape the man he would become. Born to Robert I, Duke of Normandy, and Herleva, a woman of common birth, William's early life was marked by both privilege and precariousness. Though the son of a duke, his status was tainted by the circumstances of his birth. He was illegitimate, a fact that would haunt him throughout his early years and cast a shadow over his claim to power. Normandy in the early 11th century was a duchy forged from the fires of conquest and shaped by the volatile mix of Viking aggression and Frankish politics. The land itself was a testament to the turbulent times, a place where strength and cunning were the keys to survival. Robert I, known as Robert the Magnificent, ruled with an iron fist, navigating the complex web of alliances and enmities that defined the region. However, his liaison with Helena, a woman of humble origins, resulted in the birth of William, a son who would inherit not only his father's title, but also the burdens that came with it. Despite being recognised by his father, William's illegitimacy would prove to be a significant obstacle in a world where bloodlines and legitimacy were paramount. The challenges of illegitimacy in medieval Europe were not merely social, but deeply political. To be born out of wedlock was to carry a mark of inferiority, a stigma that could weaken one's position and invite scorn from both allies and enemies. For William, this meant that his early life was fraught with difficulties that extended beyond the walls of his father's court. His status as a bastard was a point of contention, one that many would use against him in the years to come. Yet it was precisely these challenges that steeled his resolve and sharpened his ambitions. Tales from his youth, some historical, others legendary, paint a picture of a boy who, despite his circumstances, was determined to rise above the limitations imposed upon him by his birth. These stories of resilience and tenacity would later contribute to the formidable reputation he would earn as William the Conqueror. The death of Robert in 1035 set off a chain of events that would thrust the young William into a maelstrom of political intrigue and violence. At the tender age of 7, William was thrust into the role of Duke of Normandy, a title that came with immense responsibilities and dangers. Robert's untimely death left a power vacuum, and with it, the stability of Normandy was thrown into jeopardy. The duchy was now in the hands of a child, and this vulnerability did not go unnoticed by the ambitious and rebellious barons who saw an opportunity to seize power for themselves. William's guardians, chosen by Robert to protect and guide him, faced the daunting task of maintaining control in a region known for its fractious nobility. The young duke's position was precarious. He was surrounded by enemies from within and without, each eager to exploit his youth and illegitimacy to their advantage. The barons, many of whom had their own designs on the duchy, posed a constant threat to his rule. Their frequent revolts and betrayals created an atmosphere of perpetual conflict, forcing William to grow up quickly and learn the harsh realities of leadership. Despite these challenges, or perhaps because of them, William began to demonstrate the qualities that would later define his reign: ruthlessness, strategic brilliance, and an unyielding will to dominate. His early years were marked by a series of confrontations with these rebellious barons, each of whom sought to undermine his authority. Yet, through a combination of military acumen and shrewd alliances, William managed not only to survive these turbulent times, but to emerge stronger. The boy who had once been a vulnerable target became a formidable leader, gaining the loyalty of key allies and crushing those who dared to oppose him. These early power struggles in Normandy were not just a fight for survival, they were the crucible in which William's character and leadership were forged. As he matured, William's focus shifted from merely defending his title to consolidating his power across Normandy. He knew that in order to secure his position, he needed to bring the fractious barons under a series of calculated moves, both on the battlefield and in the halls of power. William formed strategic alliances with neighbouring rulers and married Matilda of Flanders, a union that strengthened his political position and provided him with the support he needed to maintain his hold on Normandy. Key battles during this time, such as the Battle of June in 1047, were decisive in solidifying his rule. At Junes, William, with the support of King Henry I of France, decisively defeated a coalition of rebellious Norman barons. This victory was a turning point, signalling the beginning of William's transformation from a beleaguered duke into a powerful ruler who could command both respect and fear. The young duke's relentless pursuit of power and his ability to navigate the treacherous waters of Norman politics earned him a reputation as a leader not to be trifled with. With Normandy under his command and his reputation as a strong and decisive ruler firmly established, William was ready to expand his influence and secure his future ambitions. The next step in his rise to power would involve not just military might, but also the forging of strategic alliances that would bolster his position on the European stage. His marriage to Matilda of Flanders would prove to be a masterstroke in this regard, setting the stage for further consolidation of his rule in Normandy and beyond, while also laying the groundwork for his eventual claim to the English crown. As William's ambitions grew, so too did the complexities of his relationships with both his vassals and neighbouring kingdoms, all of which played crucial roles in his path to becoming one of the most powerful figures of the medieval world. In 1053, William made a strategic move that would significantly bolster his position both within Normandy and across Europe: his marriage to Matilda of Flanders. Matilda was no ordinary bride. She was a woman of noble birth, the daughter of Baldwin V, Count of Flanders, and a descendant of the French royal family. This union was not just a marriage, but a powerful alliance that brought William into closer connection with the French crown and provided him with a critical ally in the volatile world of medieval European politics. The political significance of this marriage cannot be overstated. By marrying Matilda, William secured an alliance with one of the most influential and powerful families in Europe. Flanders was a thriving and strategically located region, and its support lent William both legitimacy and military strength. Matilda herself was a formidable partner. She was known for her intelligence, piety, and political acumen. Together, they formed a power couple whose influence extended far beyond the borders of Normandy. Matilda's influence on William's rule was profound. She not only managed the duchy during his frequent military campaigns, but also played a crucial role in the upbringing and education of their children, who would carry on the legacy of the Norman dynasty. The couple had at least 9 children, including Robert, who would later become Duke of Normandy, and Henry, who would ascend to the English throne as Henry I. Matilda's ability to maintain order in Normandy during William's absences and her role in the consolidation of his rule highlight the importance of their partnership. Her support allowed William to focus on his broader ambitions, confident that his duchy was in capable hands. The marriage also had a significant impact on William's power in Normandy and beyond. With Flanders as an ally, William was better positioned to defend his borders against potential threats and and to expand his influence. The union strengthened his hand in dealings with both his vassals and his rivals, reinforcing his position as a leading power in northern France. But William's rise to power was not solely based on marriage and alliances. It was also forged on the battlefield and through the astute centralisation of authority. To truly cement his rule in Normandy, William needed to bring his rebellious vassals to heel and ensure their loyalty. The duchy, like much of medieval Europe, was a patchwork of territories controlled by powerful lords who often acted with a degree of independence that bordered on insubordination. William understood that to maintain control, he needed to be both a warrior and a diplomat, capable of crushing rebellion and rewarding loyalty. One of William's most significant military campaigns during this period was the subjugation of rebellious barons who challenged his authority. These campaigns were not just battles for land, but struggles for the soul of Normandy itself. William's victory at the Battle of Hastings in 1047, with the support of King Henry I of France, was a crucial moment in these efforts. This battle saw William decisively defeat a coalition of Norman lords who sought to overthrow him, marking the beginning of his transformation from a vulnerable duke into a powerful and feared ruler. By the late 1050s, William had successfully subdued most of his rebellious vassals, establishing himself as the uncontested ruler of Normandy. William's strategy for centralising authority was both ruthless and effective. He rewarded loyalty with land and titles, creating a network of supporters who were personally invested in his rule. At the same time, he systematically dismantled the power of those who opposed him, either through direct military action or by stripping them of their holdings. William's ability to maintain loyalty among his key Norman lords was critical to his success. He cultivated relationships with powerful figures such as Roger de Beaumont and William Fitzosborne, who became two of his most trusted advisors and military commanders. These men were instrumental in helping William consolidate his power and in laying the groundwork for his future ambitions. While William was solidifying his control over Normandy, he also had to navigate the complex and often treacherous world of international diplomacy. His relations with neighbouring kingdoms were crucial to his success, particularly his interactions with France and Brittany. William's relationship with King Henry of France was especially complicated. Although Henry initially supported William during the early years of his rule, their relationship deteriorated as William's power grew. By the late 1050s, Henry had become one of William's most significant rivals, leading to a series of conflicts that tested William's resolve and military prowess. William's ability to navigate these challenges showcased his diplomatic skill. Despite the animosity with King Henry, William managed to maintain his position and even expand his influence. His marriage to Matilda provided him with an ally in Flanders, and his military successes reinforced his reputation as a formidable leader. In Brittany, William also managed to assert his influence, further consolidating his power in the region. His strategic use of marriage, diplomacy, and military force allowed him to strengthen his control over Normandy and set the stage for his next major endeavour, the conquest of England. The path to the English crown began to take shape in the early 1060s, as William's ambitions extended beyond the borders of Normandy. The death of Edward the Confessor in January 1066 sparked a succession crisis in England, creating an opportunity that William was determined to seize. William claimed that Edward had promised him the throne of England years earlier, a promise that was allegedly reinforced by Harold Godwinson, one of the most powerful noblemen in England. However, when Harold took the crown for himself, William saw this as both a betrayal and a challenge that could not go unanswered. William's claim to the English throne was not merely a matter of ambition. It was also a calculated move to expand his influence and secure his dynasty's future. The events that followed would lead to one of the most famous and consequential invasions in history, the Norman Conquest of England. As the storm clouds of war gathered, William prepared to take a step that would change the course of history and solidify his legacy as one of the most influential figures of the medieval era. The time had come for William to turn his gaze across the Channel, where an entire kingdom awaited its new ruler. The year 1066 would go down in history as one of the most transformative moments in the medieval world, a year when a duke from Normandy crossed the English Channel and forever altered the course of a kingdom. William, now known as the Conqueror, was poised to claim what he believed was rightfully his, the crown of England. But the path to kingship was far from simple. It required meticulous planning, divine endorsement, and the ruthless execution of a military campaign that would culminate in one of the most famous battles in history, the Battle of Hastings. The preparation for the Norman invasion was a monumental undertaking. William, understanding the enormity of the task, spent months gathering his forces, amassing an army of seasoned warriors from across Normandy and beyond. The logistical challenges were immense. Transporting an entire army, along with horses, supplies and weaponry, across the unpredictable waters of the English Channel was no small feat. To accomplish this, William ordered the construction of a vast fleet, capable of carrying thousands of men and their equipment to English shores. Every detail was considered, from the design of the ships to the timing of the departure, as William knew that a successful landing would be the first critical step toward victory. Yet, military might alone would not suffice to justify such an ambitious invasion. William sought the backing of the Church to lend his cause a sense of moral righteousness. He appealed to Pope Alexander II, presenting his claim to the English throne as divinely sanctioned, particularly highlighting the alleged betrayal by Harold Godwinson, who had sworn an oath of fealty to William years earlier. The papacy, keen to extend its influence in northern Europe and swayed by William's arguments, granted its support. The Pope sent a consecrated banner to William, a symbol that his campaign was blessed by the Church, thus framing the invasion as a holy mission rather than a mere power grab. With both divine and military preparations in place, William gathered his allies, Normans, Bretons, Flemings, and others, united by promises of land and wealth in the conquered kingdom. The fleet, now ready, set sail under the cover of night, and on September 28th, 1066, the Normans landed at Pevensey on the southern coast of England. William wasted no time in establishing a defensive position, constructing temporary fortifications to secure his beachhead. The invasion had begun. understood that the outcome of this battle would shape the destiny of the English crown. The battle itself was a brutal, day-long affair, marked by phases of intense combat and strategic manoeuvring. Harold's army, having marched south from their victory at Stamford Bridge, was weary but determined. They took up a defensive position on the high ground of Senlac Hill, forming a formidable shield wall, a tactic that had served them well in previous battles. William, recognising the strength of Harold's position, knew that he would need to break the shield wall to achieve victory. The battle commenced with volleys of arrows from William's archers, followed by a charge from his infantry and cavalry. However, the initial Norman assaults were repelled by the steadfast Saxon shield wall, and the battle hung in the balance. William's forces, despite their best efforts, could not penetrate the Saxon defence. At one point, rumours spread among the Norman ranks that William had been killed, causing panic and a potential rout. In a dramatic moment, William removed his helmet, revealing himself to his troops and rallying them with a call to fight on. The turning point of the battle came with William's use of a feigned retreat, a tactic that lured parts of the Saxon forces into breaking their formation to pursue the retreating Normans. This manoeuvre created gaps in the shield wall, which the Normans exploited with devastating effect. The disciplined Norman cavalry then launched a renewed assault, focusing their efforts on these weakened points in the Saxon line. As the day wore on, the battle became a test of endurance and resolve. The death of Harold Godwinson, struck by an arrow, according to some accounts, in the eye, dealt a catastrophic blow to the Saxon army's morale. Leaderless and exhausted, the Saxon forces began to crumble under the relentless pressure of the Norman onslaught. By the end of the day, the field of battle was strewn with the dead and dying, and the Anglo-Saxon army was in full retreat. William had emerged victorious, and the Battle of Hastings was over. The consequences were immediate and far-reaching. With the death of Harold and the destruction of his army, the path to the English crown lay open for William. Yet the conquest of England was far from complete. William's victory at Hastings was just the beginning of a more extended campaign to subdue the entire kingdom. Following the Battle of Hastings, William moved quickly to consolidate his hold on England. He marched his army toward London, the heart of Anglo-Saxon power, encountering resistance along the way. However, the death of Harold and the defeat at Hastings had shattered the cohesion of the English nobility. Some regions offered sporadic resistance, but many of the English lords, recognising the inevitability of William's victory, submitted to the Norman Duke, hoping to secure their lands and status under the new regime. William's march to London was marked by both military action and strategic negotiation. His forces encountered pockets of resistance, but these were swiftly dealt with, either through force or through promises of clemency to those who would submit. William's approach was calculated. He understood that outright brutality could foster long-term rebellion, so he balanced military strength with diplomatic overtures, offering leniency to those who swore loyalty to him. On Christmas Day in 1066, William was crowned King of England in Westminster Abbey. The coronation was a moment of immense significance, symbolising not only the culmination of his conquest, but also the beginning of a new era in English history. Yet, the ceremony was not without tension. As William took the crown, the Norman guards cheers from within as a sign of rebellion, panicked and set fire to nearby buildings. The scene was chaotic, a stark reminder that William's hold on England, though crowned, was still fragile. William's coronation marked the official start of his reign, but the challenges that lay ahead were formidable. England was a conquered land, and the new king faced the daunting task of asserting his authority over a divided and restive population. The coronation itself was a symbolic victory, but William knew that true control over England would require more than a crown. It would require the suppression of rebellions, the establishment of a loyal administration, and the integration of his Norman followers into the English nobility. The first years of William's reign were marked by a series of rebellions, particularly in the north of England, where resistance to Norman rule was strongest. The English nobility, though weakened by the events of 1066, was not entirely subdued, and several lords refused to accept William's authority. The north, in particular, was a hotbed of dissent, with rebellious factions rising against the new king. William responded with a mixture of force and diplomacy, moving quickly to quell any signs of insurrection. One of the most brutal responses to rebellion came in the winter of 1069 to 1070, during what became known as the Harrying of the North. In response to a series of uprisings, including support for the Danish invasion, William launched a devastating campaign across the northern counties. His forces razed villages, destroyed crops, and slaughtered livestock, leaving the region in a state of desolation. The harrying of the North was a clear message to any would-be rebels. Defiance would be met with ruthless reprisal. The campaign effectively crushed the resistance in the north, but it also left a legacy of bitterness and destruction that would linger for generations. Despite these initial challenges, William demonstrated his capacity as a ruler who could adapt to the complexities of governing a newly conquered land. He began to implement a series of measures to secure his hold on England, including the construction of a network of castles across the country. These castles, such as the Tower of London, served both as fortifications and as symbols of Norman power, strategically placed to control key regions and subdue the local population. William also sought to integrate the Norman and English nobility, redistributing land to his Norman followers, while allowing some English lords to retain their holdings, provided they swore loyalty to him. This policy helped to stabilise his rule, as it prevented the complete alienation of the English nobility, while ensuring that his most trusted allies were rewarded with land and titles. As the initial flames of rebellion were extinguished, William turned his attention to the broader governance of his new kingdom. He implemented administrative reforms that would have a lasting impact on England, laying the foundations for a centralised, Norman-controlled state. Yet, even as he established his rule, William remained vigilant, aware that his position as King of England was never entirely secure. With England under his control, William faced the daunting task of transforming a conquered territory into a cohesive kingdom. His reign would be marked by efforts to solidify his authority, maintain peace, and blend Norman and Anglo-Saxon cultures. The conquest was complete, but now the challenge of ruling a diverse and often restive population lay ahead. As we move forward, we will explore how William navigated the complexities of his reign, balancing the demands of his new kingdom with the ambitions that had driven him from the shores of Normandy to the throne of England. William the Conqueror's reign as King of England marked the beginning of a profound transformation that would reshape the country's social, political, and cultural landscape. Upon seizing the throne, William faced the immense challenge of establishing Norman rule over a land steeped in Anglo-Saxon tradition. His approach was as strategic as it was ruthless, blending military strength with a comprehensive restructuring of English society to ensure his authority was unchallenged. One of William's first priorities was the introduction of Norman culture, law, and governance. He sought to replace the existing Anglo-Saxon aristocracy with loyal Norman barons, ensuring that those in power owed their wealth and status directly to him. This redistribution of land was more than just a reward for his followers. It was a calculated move to cement Norman dominance. The old English nobility was largely dispossessed, their lands handed over to William's trusted supporters, who were expected to defend the realm and maintain order on his behalf. The imposition of Norman law further reinforced William's control. The new legal system was designed to centralise power, with William at the apex. Sheriffs, many of whom were Normans, were appointed to enforce the king's laws and oversee local governance. The introduction of the Domesday Book in 1086 was another significant step in solidifying William's rule. This vast survey of England's lands and resources provided William with the information he needed to tax his subjects effectively and to understand the wealth and power of his kingdom. It also served as a clear message. Nothing in England escaped the king's notice. The long-term impacts of these changes were profound. Under William's reign, England became more integrated into the broader European political and cultural sphere, particularly through the influence of Norman customs and language. The fusion of Norman and Anglo-Saxon cultures would eventually give rise to a uniquely English identity, but in the immediate aftermath of the conquest, it created a society deeply divided along lines of ethnicity, language, and class. William's efforts to consolidate his power were perhaps most visibly demonstrated through his ambitious programme of castle building. The castles he erected across England were not just military fortresses, they were symbols of Norman authority and control. These imposing structures, such as the iconic Tower of London, served multiple purposes. They were defensive strongholds, administrative centres, and residences for the Norman elite. Strategically located, often in rebellious regions or along important trade routes, the castles were instrumental in maintaining order and quelling resistance. The construction of these castles also facilitated the introduction and consolidation of the feudal system in England. Under this system, William distributed land to his loyal barons in exchange for military service and support. These barons, in turn, granted portions of their lands to knights and lesser nobles, creating a hierarchical structure that bound everyone to the king. The feudal system redefined English society, placing the king at its centre and ensuring that all roads of loyalty led back to him. This system not only helped William control his vast new kingdom, but also laid the groundwork for the development of the English monarchy in the centuries to come. William's relationship with the Church was another crucial aspect of his reign. The Catholic Church played a vital role in legitimising his rule, ensuring that it was firmly under his control. These appointments were not just about loyalty, they were also part of William's broader strategy to integrate Normandy and England more closely. The Church, in turn, provided the moral and spiritual justification for William's rule, helping to stabilise his authority in a land where he was still seen by many as a foreign conqueror. However, William's relationship with the Church was not without conflict. He was determined to assert his authority over ecclesiastical matters, leading to tensions with the papacy. William refused to allow the Pope to interfere in the governance of England, particularly in the appointment of bishops. This assertion of royal supremacy over the Church in England would have lasting implications, setting the stage for future conflicts between the English crown and the Church. Despite these tensions, the Church remained a crucial ally in William's efforts to consolidate Norman rule and maintain stability in his kingdom. As William aged, his reign was increasingly overshadowed by conflicts within his own family, particularly with his eldest son, Robert Curthis. Robert's relationship with his father was fraught with tension, fueled by a combination of personal rivalry and political ambition. Robert resented William's refusal to grant him more power and autonomy, particularly over the Duchy of Normandy, which Robert believed was rightfully his. This tension eventually boiled over into open rebellion, with Robert attempting to seize control of Normandy in the 1070s. The conflict between father and son was bitter, and while it was temporarily resolved through a reconciliation, it left deep scars on William's family and his legacy. These familial conflicts had significant implications for William's later years. His health began to decline, and he faced the difficult task of securing the succession to his various domains. William's three surviving sons, Robert, William Rufus, and Henry, were all ambitious, and the question of who would inherit what became a source of division. William ultimately decided to divide his lands. Robert would inherit Normandy, William Rufus would become King of England, and Henry was left with a significant sum of money, but no lands, setting the stage for future conflicts among the brothers. William's final years were marked by a combination of declining health and persistent challenges to his rule. He spent much of his time dealing with rebellions and unrest in both England and Normandy. In 1087, while leading a campaign in northern France, William suffered a serious injury that ultimately led to his death. His passing left a kingdom still grappling with the after effects of conquest and a legacy of strong but often brutal leadership. As we move to explore William's personality and leadership style, it becomes clear that the traits that defined his reign, ruthlessness, strategic brilliance, and a relentless pursuit of power, were also deeply ingrained in his character. These qualities not only enabled him to conquer and rule England, but also shaped the very nature of his kingship, leaving an indelible mark on the history of both Normandy and England. William the Conqueror was a man whose personality was as formidable as his military conquests. Contemporary accounts paint a picture of a ruler whose presence commanded respect and fear in equal measure. Chroniclers of the time, such as William of Poitiers and Orderic Vitalis, describe him as a figure of immense physical and mental strength, a man driven by an unyielding ambition and a will of iron. He was ruthless when necessary, capable of great cruelty to secure his objectives. objectives, but he was also deeply pious, genuinely believing that his actions were sanctioned by divine will. William's ambition was perhaps his most defining trait. From his earliest years, he was determined to rise above the circumstances of his birth and claim the power he believed was his due. This ambition was matched by a strategic mind that allowed him to outmaneuver his enemies, both on the battlefield and in the political arena. Yet, despite his ruthlessness, William was also known for his sense of justice, though it was a justice that often served his interests above all. His piety too was a double-edged sword. While it guided his personal faith and won him the support of the church, it also provided a convenient justification for his more brutal actions. William's leadership style was a unique blend of military prowess, administrative acumen, and an acute understanding of human nature. On the battlefield, he was a commander of unmatched skill, capable of inspiring loyalty and fear among his troops. His victory at the Battle of Hastings was not just a triumph of arms, but a testament to his ability to think several steps ahead of his opponents. Off the battlefield, William proved to be an astute administrator. He implemented a centralised system of governance in both Normandy and England, one that relied on a network of loyal vassals and a strict hierarchical structure. His creation of the Domesday Book exemplified his methodical approach to ruling, an exhaustive survey that allowed him to assess and control his new kingdom with precision. William's influence extended far beyond the borders of his domains. His reign set new standards for kingship in medieval Europe, blending the feudal system with a centralised monarchy in ways that would be emulated by other rulers. His ability to maintain power in both Normandy and England, despite the constant challenges he faced, set him apart from many of his contemporaries who struggled to control even a single kingdom. Comparatively, William's rule was marked by a level of stability and order that was rare in the turbulent world of 11th century Europe. As we transition from exploring William's personal qualities to examining the broader impact of his reign, it is clear that his leadership left an indelible mark on both the culture and economy of England. The changes he implemented would resonate for generations, shaping the very fabric of English society and laying the foundation for a new era in its history. The Norman Conquest of England in 1066 was not just a military victory. It was the catalyst for a profound cultural and economic transformation that reshaped the nation. Under William the Conqueror's rule, the blending of Norman and Anglo-Saxon cultures began to form a new English identity, one that bore the marks of both its conquerors and its native traditions. This fusion was evident in many aspects of daily life, from the language people spoke to the buildings that dotted the landscape. The most immediate and visible change was in architecture. The Normans introduced the Romanesque style, characterised by massive stone fortresses and grand cathedrals that replaced the simpler wooden structures of the Anglo-Saxons. These imposing buildings, like the Tower of London and the cathedrals at Canterbury and Durham, not only symbolised Norman power, but also became central to the cultural life of the nation. Art and literature also reflected this cultural blending, with manuscripts and religious texts incorporating both Norman and Anglo-Saxon elements Language was another area where the impact of the conquest was deeply felt. The Normans spoke a dialect of Old French, which began to merge with Old English, creating a linguistic blend that would eventually evolve into Middle English. This new language, which was spoken in the courts and among the ruling classes, would slowly filter down through society, influencing everything from legal terminology to everyday speech. Over time, this linguistic integration enriched the English language with thousands of Norman words, many of which are still in use today. Economically, the Norman Conquest brought about significant changes in land ownership and governance. William redistributed vast tracts of land to his Norman followers, displacing the Anglo-Saxon nobility and creating a new feudal order. This shift not only altered the social hierarchy, but also introduced Norman economic practices, which were more centralised and efficient than the previous Anglo-Saxon systems. The Domesday Book, commissioned by William in 1086, was a critical tool in this transformation. This comprehensive survey of England's lands and resources allowed William to implement a more systematic approach to taxation and governance, ensuring that every piece of land was accounted for and that taxes were collected with precision. The long-term economic effects of these changes were far-reaching. The introduction of the feudal system created a more structured society where economic obligations were clearly defined, linking land ownership directly to service to the crown. This restructuring also facilitated the growth of towns and markets, laying the foundations for the development of a more dynamic and interconnected economy in the centuries to come. The conquest, while initially disruptive, ultimately led to a more stable and prosperous England, setting the stage for the country's emergence as a major European power. As we reflect on the sweeping cultural and economic changes brought by William's conquest, it becomes clear that these transformations were just the beginning of his lasting influence. The imprint he left on England went far beyond castles and language. It reshaped the very foundations of society. Now, we turn to explore William's enduring legacy, a legacy that would echo through the centuries, defining the future of both England and Europe in ways few could have imagined. William the Conqueror's legacy is perhaps most tangibly embodied in the Domesday Book, a monumental achievement that stands as one of the most important documents in English history. Compiled in 1086, just a year before William's death, the Domesday Book was an exhaustive survey of landholdings and resources across England. It was an unprecedented project, driven by William's desire to consolidate his control over the newly conquered kingdom and to ensure that every piece of land, every village, and every manor was accounted for and could be taxed accordingly. The process of compiling the Domesday Book was an immense undertaking. Royal commissioners were dispatched to every shire in England, where they gathered information from local juries composed of landholders, both Norman and English. These juries were required to answer detailed questions about the ownership, value, and use of land, as well as the obligations of its occupants. The level of detail in the Domesday Book is staggering. It records not only the names of landowners, but also the number of ploughs, mills, livestock, and even the presence of fish ponds on estates. This meticulous survey provided William with a comprehensive It provides insights into the social structure, economy, and landscape of the time, making it an essential tool for understanding the medieval period. But for William, the Domesday Book was more than just a record. It was a symbol of his authority. By cataloguing the kingdom's assets so thoroughly, William reinforced his dominance, demonstrating that every inch of land was under his watchful eye. The Domesday Book also served as a means of solidifying the feudal system he had implemented, ensuring that the obligations of vassals to their lords, and ultimately to the king, were clearly defined and enforced. William's influence on English culture and governance extends far beyond the Domesday Book. The blending of Norman and Anglo-Saxon cultures under his reign laid the foundation for the future of England. The Normans brought with them not only new architectural styles and language, but also new approaches to governance and law. The introduction of the feudal system, the centralisation of power under the monarchy, and the integration of Norman legal practices all contributed to the evolution of English governance. These changes were not merely superficial. They redefined the relationship between the crown and its subjects, establishing precedents that would influence the English legal system for centuries. The cultural impact of William's reign is equally profound. The fusion of Norman and Anglo-Saxon traditions created a uniquely English identity, one that blended the strengths of both cultures. The Norman influence is evident in the development of the English language, which absorbed thousands of Norman French words and phrases, enriching its vocabulary and complexity. This linguistic blending would eventually give rise to Middle English, the language of Chaucer, and the precursor to modern English. In art and architecture, the Norman Conquest ushered in the Romanesque style, with its grand cathedrals and stone castles, leaving a lasting mark on the English landscape. William's death in 1087 marked the end of an era, but it also set the stage for new conflicts and challenges. After suffering a severe injury during a campaign in northern France, William's health deteriorated rapidly. On his deathbed, he faced the difficult task of dividing his vast territories among his sons. His eldest son, Robert Curthis, was granted Normandy, while his second son, William Rufus, received the crown of England. His youngest son, Henry, was left with a substantial amount of money, but no lands, a decision that would sow the seeds of future discord within the family. The division of William's lands led to a series of conflicts between his sons, as each sought to expand their power and influence. Robert and William Rufus were frequently at odds, with Robert challenging his brother's rule over England. These familial conflicts not only weakened the stability of William's legacy, but also set a precedent for the dynastic struggles that would plague the English crown for generations. Despite these challenges, William's reign left an indelible mark on England and Normandy, shaping the political and cultural landscape of both regions. As we turn our attention to the legacy of William's descendants, it becomes clear that the impact of his reign did not end with his death. The Norman dynasty he established would continue to influence the course of English and European history, as his heirs grappled with the challenges of maintaining the vast empire he had forged. The story of William the Conqueror is one of ambition, conquest, and transformation, and the legacy of his descendants whose reigns shaped the course of English and Norman history in ways both expected and surprising. William's second son, William II, known as William Rufus, ascended to the English throne after his father's death in 1087. His reign was marked by a continuation of his father's centralised rule, but with a distinctively different approach. William Rufus was known for his ruthlessness and his strained relationship with the church, which contrasted with his father's more calculated piety. His reign was characterised by frequent conflicts, both with his own barons and with his brother Robert Curthose, who ruled Normandy. Despite these challenges, William Rufus managed to maintain control over England until his mysterious death in 1100, which left the throne to his younger brother, Henry I. Henry I, the youngest of William's sons, proved to be a shrewd and capable ruler, known as Henry Beauclerc for his scholarly interests. He skillfully navigated the complexities of ruling both England and Normandy. Henry's reign saw a consolidation of his father's legacy, with continued efforts to strengthen royal authority and centralise governance. He also worked to repair relations with the church, balancing his father's legacy with his own vision for the kingdom. One of Henry's most significant contributions was the development of the English legal system, laying the groundwork for what would eventually become English common law. However, his reign was not without turmoil. His efforts to secure the succession for his daughter, Matilda, led to a period of civil war known as the Anarchy, a conflict that underscored the challenges of maintaining dynastic stability. The long-term impact of William's descendants extended well beyond their individual reigns. The Norman dynasty, established by William and continued through his sons, played a crucial role in shaping the future of England and Normandy. The fusion of Norman and Anglo-Saxon cultures, initiated by William, continued to evolve under his descendants, leaving a lasting imprint on English law, governance, and society. The architectural and cultural legacies of the Normans, seen in the grand castles and cathedrals that still stand today, are a testament to the enduring influence of William's conquest. Moreover, the Norman legacy persisted through the subsequent generations, influencing the Plantagenet dynasty that would follow. The lineage of William the Conqueror intertwined with the future rulers of England, establishing a precedent for the strong, centralised monarchy that would become a hallmark of English governance. The descendants of William not only maintained the lands and titles he had won, but also expanded upon his achievements, ensuring that the Norman influence would remain a cornerstone of English history for centuries to come. As we draw near to the conclusion of William the Conqueror's story, it's clear that his legacy is not merely a chapter in history, but a foundation upon which much of English and European history was built. The journey of his life and the lives of his descendants reveals the profound and lasting impact of his conquest, which continues to echo through the ages. William the Conqueror's life has always struck me as a remarkable journey of ambition, strategy, and transformation. From his early years as a young duke in Normandy, weighed down by the stigma of illegitimacy, William rose to become one of the most powerful figures in medieval Europe. His determination to carve out his place in history led him across the English Channel, where in 1066 he secured one of the most famous victories in European As I reflect on William's rule, what stands out is his unwavering commitment to consolidating his power. He didn't just conquer England, he transformed it. He introduced Norman governance, restructured the social hierarchy, and made sure that every corner of his kingdom was firmly under his control. The Domesday Book, a testament to his meticulous nature, remains one of the most valuable historical documents, offering us a glimpse into the England he helped to create. William's reign was defined by his unique ability to blend force with administration, and his legacy is still visible in the enduring structures, laws, and cultural shifts that continue to shape England today. William's legacy, for me, extends far beyond his lifetime. His conquest of England marked the beginning of a new era, where Norman influence touched every aspect of life, from language and law to architecture and governance. The foundations he laid contributed to the development of a strong, centralised monarchy, and his impact can be seen in the evolution of the English state. William's story isn't just about conquest, it's about transformation. A transformation that reshaped the future of England and left an indelible mark on European history. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to like it and subscribe to the ASMR History channel for more ASMR history content. You can also share your thoughts or suggestions for future topics in the comments below. Your support helps me continue bringing history to life in a way that's both relaxing and informative. Wherever you are in the world, I hope things are okay and you have a great day and or night, and as always, sleep well.